attending the rally today to drive carefully and have regard for others using the roads. The Broadcasting Authority of Ireland is proposing to become a regulator for online video content across the EU. The Sunday Independent says the plan to make the BAI a media commission means they would regulate companies like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Currently, the BAI oversees radio and television broadcasting in Ireland. Speaking on The Record, digital expert Stephen O'Leary says technology is overtaking regulation.
One of the key pieces in all of the coverage around the regulation of online content that we've seen this week was the point that the DPP made, and they were particularly critical when both Twitter and Facebook were brought to court this week about the fact that Twitter were reactive, whereas Facebook were being proactive.
That's all for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. For the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring, Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
Mostly cloudy with showers extending northwards during the day. It'll be heavy at times with a risk of thundery downpours later. Highest temperatures of 14 to 16 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Now then, you're very welcome back. So we're here to review the Sunday Papers as ever, and we will start with the headlines as ever. So Sunday Independent is what I have first. We are on Facebook and all our social channels, as well as the radio if you want to watch us as well as listen. So Sunday Independent go with Kerry yesterday. Kerry survive. Resurgent Cork let Kingdom off hook. That was Kerry's 119 to 310 win over Cork yesterday. Porky Queeve. Cork fans, you'll be happy to see Colm O'Rourke here on the bottom half of the page. The headline of his piece is "The good news for the Rebels is they have a team again," which was the takeaway a lot of people had from yesterday's match. Sunday Times. Next here, a picture of Gavin White lifting the Munster Championship trophy yesterday at Porky Queeve. Kerry take Munster crown after 119 to 310 win over Cork. Kingdom rule is the headline. Bottom half of the page, backlash against FAI plans. We'll come on to this in a moment. This is the chairman of the Schoolboys FAI, John Early, who is not impressed with the new FAI plans. And then over on the right-hand side, Duncan Castle's here. Neymar Coutinho swap, says Duncan Castle. So it seems Barcelona prepared to pay PSG up to €90 million for 27-year-old Neymar, plus they will give PSG either Philippe Coutinho or Ousmane Dembele. And it seems that Neymar is willing to take a fairly hefty pay cut as well to make the move back to Barcelona. Back page of the Sunday World, Coutinho no. That's John Aldridge. He's their columnist in the Sunday World. He doesn't think Liverpool should go near Philippe Coutinho if he becomes available anyway, given the circumstances under which he left. Then the Sun, a few different things here. Keen Edge, Kingdom Crown. This is Peter Keane, who in the piece is saying he didn't think the performance was up to scratch in many ways, but they won nonetheless. And then top of the page, Didier Drogba confirming last night Lampard is in talks with Chelsea. That was at a Q&A. And it seems as well a picture of Paul Pogba. The headline, "Get Out. United pals want Pogba to leave." This is Ken Lawrence. Apparently, Paul Pogba's teammates at Manchester United think he should leave, according to Lawrence there. That's an exclusive. He is not unpopular in the dressing room, says Lawrence, but many want to concentrate on a new start, is the feeling he's picked up on. Sunday Mirror then, again, it's Kerry yesterday, and again, it's a picture of Gavin White lifting the trophy. Kerry spirit wins the day in Cork victory, but manager isn't happy at the level of his side's performance, so a similar theme there. And finally, picture of David Clifford, back page of the Mail on Sunday. Kerry Fright Night, Kingdom on the ropes after Rebels' rousing goal blitz. 3 goals conceded by Kerry. It will give them food for thought. Peter Keane also here hailing the fighting spirit, and a picture of David Clifford on the back page. Mark O'Shea here is writing in the Mail on Sunday. Defending is a dying art, and that plays into Dublin's hands. So they are your back pages anyway. We're joined in studio again by Timmy McCarthy. Good to have you with us, of McCarthy Consulting in your day-to-day life, and then 4 Olympic Games for RTE on the basketball. People will know your basketball commentary and a Ryder Cup, and former Irish captain and coach as well. Good to have you back with us.
Good to be back, Joe.
Thanks very much for joining us. And journalist Garry Doyle here as well. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Joe.
So, a few different bits and bobs going on. It would be remiss of us not to note yesterday was the last Times Ireland edition. You were obviously a big part of that. I would presume a very difficult couple of weeks, months.
It's been a funny time. It's been a mixture of
a lap of honour in terms of other reporters have been really good, really encouraging, really positive, and there's just been a nice sense of human decency come out of people, sort of contacting you to say sorry you've lost your job, blah de blah. But it's been good, and against that there's also a sort of a sense of mourning that a paper that you were proud to work on, that is now over, and your colleagues that you get on really well with, that you're not going to work with them again. So it's been a bit of a mixture, but you bounce back.
How long were you there?
4 years.
Enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great. It was a good paper. We built it up. The sales weren't good. The best way of describing it, Joe, is it's like the 1980s transported to 2019. Modern day newspapers are the 1980s coal industry. It's in decline, and we were the unprofitable pit that Thatcherites decided to shut down. And that's reality, and it's annoying, but I can't say I was surprised by the decision.
So was it one of those things where even from a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, you felt was on the long finger but coming?
From day one, the day I went in there, I knew it was a risk going there. The company had made me redundant 8 years ago when I was with the News of the World. So anybody who goes into journalism now goes there with their eyes wide open. There is a strong chance that you will be made redundant, which is, it's a business that we love. It's a passion. You don't do it for the money.
No.
But you do it because you love writing, you do it because you love sport, and you do it because what else would you want to do? If you're not capable of playing sport, the next best thing playing sport at an elite level, the next best thing is to be there in the stands writing about it. So if I had any sense, I'd get out of the business now, but I don't have any sense, so I'm not going to get out of the business. It's just too much fun. And
did you consider getting out?
Yeah.
Every journalist does, I think, at the moment.
It would make sense to get out, but if you're passionate about something, you don't get out of it, because you just know that there will be opportunities out there. You know that you're good, and you know you're going to get opportunities, so you hang about.
And does the current climate dent your passion at all? Like, does your passion...
For sport, no.
Does the passion that you have for writing and the love of it not become almost intertwined with the worry and the stress and the sense of foreboding?
No. Rightly, I'd say I'm a bit like one of those characters in Chernobyl, like, you've got that radioactive toxicity coming off you because you've closed 2 newspapers. So prospective employers are no doubt looking at me and saying, if we get him, we're going down.
Garry Doyle,
so we're not going to go near him, right? But in terms of of diluting your passion for it, no way.
No way.
No way whatsoever, Because
I wonder might there be like a Pavlov's dog effect. Like, this thing, I love it, but it also brings me just so much stress. And
I can't bother getting stressed anymore. There's so many good papers in Ireland. And one thing I'd like to say, apart from the fact that so many colleagues have been so generous, and apart from expressing my gratitude to those guys, the other thing I'd like to say is, yesterday on the newsstands there were 9 Irish newspapers. Tomorrow there are going to be 8. So anybody that tunes into this show has got a passion for 2 things. Number 1, sport. Number 2, newspapers. Okay, because this obviously is the paper review. Therefore, they all have a choice tomorrow to go to the newsstands and to buy a paper. So you've got 8 really good papers, and I'm a fan of all 8. And they've got different strengths and they've got different styles. But there's some hidden gems tucked away within those newspapers on different days as well. There's some columnists that are rated really highly that don't get a lot of credit or a lot of publicity, such as Neil Reardon on a Tuesday on what he has to say about Irish football. Colin Keys on a Tuesday sums up the championship weekend in a way that nobody else does as effectively. A big fan of the Herald during the summer, a big fan of all the tabloids, big fan of all the broadsheets as well. People should go support the papers, so to make sure that in a year's time that we're not talking about the demise of another paper and they were saying there's only 7 on the newsstands or 6 or 5. So people do have a choice. People can keep this industry alive. But my attitude is you've got to go out and support it. And that starts with journalists as well. We have to go out and buy newspapers rather than Twitter has become a major reason for the demise of papers, because journalists are giving stuff away free on Twitter. Instead of, I can't understand that, because you have the opportunity of protecting your employment by not hawking yourself around on social media for free.
There's going to be a major cultural shift now to rein that back in and put paywalls up and stop giving stuff away. That's going to be a big change, but it probably has to happen for the industry. Are you optimistic for the industry in a market this size?
No.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not. I'm not optimistic for the industry.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. If you look at the sales of newspapers now compared to 10 years ago, they've decreased dramatically. I would be optimistic for the industry in the sense that when I started in '98, the standard of sports journalism in this country has improved dramatically. I think, this is a Sunday paper review, but if you were to do this programme on a Tuesday, a Wednesday or a Thursday...
You could do it any day.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Tommy Martin midweek, great columnist. Kieran Shannon, really talented columnist midweek as well.
Great interviewer as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of... And look, I'm doing a disservice to a lot of journalists by not mentioning them here, by name checking.
No, we understand. You're just picking out random examples.
Yeah, but there's serious quality. The Star on a Saturday, Inside Sports section, that's been going for I think 25 years now. One other thing to mention, Joe, I don't think people realise the work ethic of so many journalists. There's this guy Paul Keane. I'd say he produces about 25,000 words a week. That's a serious draw for sport and for working. And the Herald have only three, to the best of my knowledge, they have 3 full-time sports reporters. The Star have 5, the Mirror have 3, the Sun have 4, and they're producing 7 days a week. That requires guys with a serious love of sport to keep doing that week after week, day after day, year after year. And you don't do that unless it's what you're passionate for. You definitely don't do it for the money.
No. And
nor should you.
It's a dreadful time for everybody involved, and it is different to if you were an accountant in a small or medium-sized business which had to make you redundant. You probably know you'll find a good job relatively soon, whereas you're now being cast back out onto a market which is dwindling. So it's not easy for anyone who's lost their job. Being made redundant is dreadful at the best of times. This is not the best of times for journalists. So you're back out trying to, for a lot of people, work the freelance market, which is no fun either.
Well, freelance market is a tough gig. I've done it as well, and I wouldn't recommend it. But look, why did you get into it, Joe, and why did I get into it? It's because it's what you want to do. I remember when I left college in '97, I was a tour guide briefly, the worst tour guide in the country. Got my fellow tourists lost mid route around Dublin. I was a tax consultant, and Jesus,
good steady job, sensible, earn a few quid.
Yeah,
go back into tax consultancy. No.
And this is what you do, what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because once you do a job that you enjoy, you don't work a day in your life. So it's a cliche, but it's true.
Timmy, you're looking on at the industry. I mean, you've obviously been involved with RTE and gone to Olympic Games and Ryder Cups, and you've a taste of the media world, I guess. It's never good when a paper closes, to say the least.
No, I think the point Garry made is very valid, not just in newspapers, but it needs support. We talk about sport. We all love sport. That's why we're here today. Why don't the women, fill Croke Park for women's Gaelic football? And, we talk 50,000 this year and it's great, but why not 80,000, We need to support things. And the newspaper industry is one where, people still like news, particularly sports news in a country like this. And, we import a lot, we take a lot of stuff from the UK and as easy to take. But I really believe that, the loss of the Times and other papers that may follow is sad for the industry, but sad for our country, because your point about an accountant can get a job in some other place, where the journalists will find it harder because the pool is so small, is very valid. But I think the thing is that we need to support industries that go through tough times. And the analogy Garry made was the coal mines in the UK. That's a different analogy, I would say, because there could be health factors and other things. But I think the newspaper industry just needs support. It just needs people to spend X amount of money every day or every second day just to support the industry, because there's really quality stuff comes out. And what I find even in the Sunday paper reviews, you see a little snippet that unless you buy the paper, you don't see. And we don't talk about it down in the restaurant, in the pub or at home, because it's just not what we talk about. And I think it's very sad that, you know, the Times has gone. It's gone for commercial reasons, whether they're valid or not. You know, that's for the people who made that decision commercially. But I've always looked at, you know, overseas papers or overseas businesses with interest in Ireland, and it's a small market, so they've got to understand that. So when they look at things like profitability, it's very easy to say, well, Greater Manchester will make more money than Ireland, you know, because the population of Greater Manchester,
10 million people. Yeah.
So that's always a factor. But I do think that we, you know, as a nation, we don't support enough things. We talk a lot about things at times, but we don't support it by, you know, bums and seats, hands in our pockets for newspapers. I explained, you know, the Camogie and women's football, which has tremendously developed over the last few years, but they still can't fill Croke Park. Yet on our final day, 40,000 women will be at the men's final, you know, hurling and football. So, you know, we just need to be more convinced and committed to supporting, you know, industries like, you know, like the sports journalism and news journalism and sports, where, you know, we just need to be more committed to that. Less talk at times, and more action would help us save some of the jewels that we're losing. And the one I've always learned in business and in sport, you don't get them back. When you lose a jewel, you know, it ain't easy to recover the jewels. You know, they come in different guises, but they don't come back as smoothly as we think, you know.
Let's check in with Aaron Kernan, who is, 20 minutes into this game up in Clonus, Aaron, the Ulster football final. What's the latest?
Yeah, Donegal in control here at the moment. 7 points to 3, and Donegal have 7 different scorers, 6 of them from play. 3 Cavan scores coming from Conor Mina, and the 2 midfielders, Conor Brady and Garry McIlroy. So really, Cavan are just sort of hanging in here at the moment. You know, they're under pressure from their own kickouts. They're under pressure trying to get shots off at the other end of the field, and Donegal just seem to be able to get scores on the board and get their hands on the ball that bit easier. But no, in fairness, Cavan, they're game, they're battling for everything, but just hanging in the more at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. 7 points to 3, Donegal in control, 22 minutes on the clock. We are reviewing the Sunday papers with Garry Doyle and Timmy McCarthy. The FAI story is on the front page of the Sunday Times. It's worth just touching on. I know, Garry, you suspect there's a bit of FAI fatigue out there, and I'm starting to detect it myself. It's definitely slowing down in terms of excitement levels. The situation at the moment, if you were to sum it up, and it's on the front page here of the Sunday Times, and there's a piece in the Mail on Sunday about it on page 71 there, is that a set of recommendations have been put forward, and they include the schoolboy seat at the board of the FAI being shared, so not being an automatic full-time seat at the board. And so the chairman of the Schoolboys FAI, John Early, has resigned. He resigned on Wednesday over the plans to abolish their automatic right to a seat. This is following Aidan Horan of the Institute for Public Administration. He headed up a review group, so they've put forward a load of recommendations which the FAI want to try and accept in full. You suspect really just to try and smooth everything over as quickly as possible. One of those recommendations is that the schoolboy seat wouldn't be an automatic, and John Early has resigned. He says, I'm very disappointed when Aidan Horan, who's head up this review committee, addressed the board and told us we were all culpable for what had happened. This is Early speaking yesterday, the schoolboy representative speaking yesterday. I don't think the schoolboy football has any culpability. If John Delaney made a $100,000 loan and we never even knew who signed off on that, I wasn't aware of it. I was never told who said afterwards that I was aware of it. I'm still very unhappy. So it seems what's going to happen here is that there's going to be the AGM, and the FAI want to push through the recommendation, but certainly they won't have the support of the schoolboy votes, which are sizable. That's the general gist here.
Yeah, like, I mean, if anyone thinks, firstly, that this story is going to fade into the background, they're off their heads. This is going to go on, I'd say, for another couple of years.
Yeah, that's my worry. Yeah. We're into a saga here.
The fatigue element, it's funny, like Paul Rowan and Philip Quinn, the two guys that we're referencing here, they're dogged. They're going to, the FAI aren't going to get away with anything without those two guys making sure that everything's above board. They're not shy about asking the hard question. in terms of the level of fatigue, people
were sports journalists a bit. It was striking. It was Mark Ty who made the breakthrough.
Yeah.
So point being, shouldn't a sports journalist have led that charge over the previous decade?
Have you not been reading the papers in the previous decade?
Yeah.
Okay, well in 2010 I wrote a piece saying it's time for John Delaney to go for the News of the World.
Yeah.
I got the sum total of the reaction to that piece were 2 letters from schoolboy clubs saying how great it to my, not to me, but to my sports editor, how in God's name they knew who my sports editor was remarkable. I have no idea how they found out. And the point that they were making was, this is rubbish journalism, you can't be allowing this to happen. There was zero reaction otherwise. Nobody cared. None of the politicians that have been jumping up and down, waving their hands.
Oh, well, that's just opportunism.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yeah. But so, in terms of almost the smoking gun or the evidence, I guess, or the story like the 100 grand loan or the other bits and pieces, do you think there's an argument that actually over the past 10 years...
Joe, nobody has been shy. Absolutely no.
Oh, everyone's critiqued him and his behaviour, but in terms of actually getting the story to...
That's good journalism on Mark's behalf. And also, there's a couple of guys in The Sun who aren't getting the same plaudits.
No, that's true.
Neil Cotter's work on this story has been exceptional, and he continues to get story after story. Even, the fatigue element that's kicked in with the reader.
Yeah.
Neil has been knocking on the door, hasn't been shy at all about asking the hard question and doing the graft to get really good stories. Sometimes you just get lucky. I'm sorry, I don't mean to dismiss Mark's work as luck.
I know what you mean.
But Paul Rowan has been dogged after Delaney since 2005. And I wouldn't say there's one football reporter on the beat that hasn't asked serious questions of John Delaney and the FAI, and are continuing to ask serious questions. So, fair play to Mark for getting it, but who got the winning goal for Portugal in the Euro 2016 final? That doesn't mean that Ronaldo wasn't a key reason for their victory as well. If Paul hadn't have... actually, I forget the name of who got the goal in 2016. I know he played for Swansea on loan for a bit.
Was it Elber, something like that? It's a left-footed strike from distance.
I can picture the goal, but my point being that if the climate hadn't have been there, would the editors have encouraged Mark Tagg to go hunting for that story?
It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
And there were a lot of times when journalists were told by their editors, back off now, we're worried about the legalities of this situation. The readers aren't interested in the story. So, let it go. And it's to the credit of Rowan and Quinner and Paul Lennon and Emmett Malone and Dan MacDonald, absolutely every one of us. Again, I'm leaving names out here, apologies to them. They never let up.
Yeah.
If anybody let up, I disappeared for 5 or 6 years from the story, which I'm embarrassed about, I wasn't shy at one stage about having to go, and then it didn't do much. So I'm not going to criticise any other colleagues for the fact that Mark got the story. Fair play to him for getting it, but plenty of credit should be shared around to the other chaps in the press box.
It's a good answer. Why did you go away from it for those years? All of the above reasons?
I can't remember. I got bored. Do you know something? Like we were talking earlier before we came on air, I find administrative stories seriously boring. And even though this is a really important issue, and I've never once gone to, when I was growing up, I didn't want to watch an FAI council meeting or an FAI AGM. Do you know one sports fan that does?
No, it's not why you get into the business.
It's not why you get. I couldn't care. I hope. Now listen, I've strong views on it. I think the entire board should go. I think quite a few others should go as well. I'm extremely angry as a football fan that Brian Kerr has been dumped out of Irish football and Owen Hand. I can't understand why Pat Fenlon and Trevor Crowley aren't involved. I'm really, really annoyed that football is run the way it is run in this country. For somebody who is a fan and also somebody that got involved with at coaching and being secretary at a couple of clubs. So there are brilliant administrators in this country, but they tend to stay underneath the radar and away from it. So the boys are doing us a service, but
for sticking on it. Well,
in terms of how it reads, like, you know, it's you know.
I don't think fatigue should be allowed to develop in this show. I think that's a very dangerous position for journalists to allow happen. I think that this is a huge issue for this country. I think that it takes courage to stay with the story now, because what looks like, you know, if you take the front page that we talked about, Paul Rowan, is that, you know, the FAI are going to, you know, take this report and implement it fully if they can get the numbers, obviously, when the AGM comes around in July, in that sense. And that doesn't mean that this report is the right way forward either. It just means that these group of people have decided that, you know, in light of the current situation, this is the way forward. And if you take the schoolboys being ousted, as is commented on here in that sense, that to me would not be a good thing for, you know, for any organisation to have no participation by such a key
on the board.
part.
But it seems they'll have to share their seat in the board, which they're unhappy with.
Yeah, but I also, but I think that, you know, in the sense of this story, we're now at a stage where, you know, this could easily just get whitewashed, and, you know, John Delaney, you know, his role, his current role, whether that will be maintained or will just part of you know, employment issue going forward.
Yeah.
But the reality here is that, you know, there's been a lack of governance, okay, in the FAI, you know, for whatever reasons, okay, for ineptitude, inability to act as directors, inexperience, volunteerism, whatever. There's a whole lot of things. And I think right now, you know, this is the biggest sport in the country. I mean, you know, more people play soccer than any other sport in this country. We can't afford, you know, to have an association of this magnitude not corrected. And, you know, we're now in a political minefield. You know, you have ministers coming out now and saying, you know, oh, it's great, they'll implement the report and it'll all be lovely and rosy. It really won't. This really needs to be, you know, front and centre of every journalist's mindset, in my view. And the fact that there's fatigue, in my experience, fatigue comes from two things. First of all, the reader gets fatigued most times because the writers stop putting it out with the same interest in that sense. And then the writers get fatigued because, you know, their editors or the political minefield, you know, it gets too tough. I would encourage all journalists who are around the story to stay with the courage.
I don't think you've anything to worry about knowing these chaps.
Yeah, well, Paul Rowan's saying, so for these recommendations to be implemented that the review committee has come up with, they need a 2/3 majority at the AGM.
Yep.
So that's 140 out of 206 attendees. Yep. Already, the schoolboys have 36 votes, and it looks like they're going to go the other way because they don't want to lose their seat. So they are not signing up in favour of this. Paul Rowan suggests that the FAI want to get this whole report through. Like, they've taken every single recommendation, almost as a preemptive strike, he says, by those curious bedfellows of the FAI and Sport Ireland, aimed at taking some of the sting out of the damning series of reports which are coming their way over the next few months. He says even if that's the case, Paul Rowan, he's looked at the report and there's lots of good things in the report. So independent directors, a chairperson, all to be welcomed. He talks about a series of checks and balances which seem never-ending and appear to raise the spectre of much red tape. So he's saying in Rowan's piece that the report is actually good, although there's a real element within the FAI of trying to get this report through in its entirety because they know there's some bad stuff coming down the line, and it's much easier to say when that bad stuff comes down the line, well, look, we've put in all these recommendations, we've already cleaned up the house a little bit. So that's a little bit of what's going on. The opener to Philip Quinn's piece is great, actually, because he says time has stood still in Abbottstown for way too long. The meeting room where Donald Conway, the FAI president, and Aidan Horn, the chairperson of this review group, briefed Sunday journalists. He says the clock was broken on the wall, and the framed photo of the Republic of Ireland squad with Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane was taken in 2015. The little details, as Giovanni Trapattoni used to say, may be relatively minor in the great scheme of Irish football, but they are a telltale sign of an organisation that's taken its eye off the ball. It's kind of a nice colourful image or start to that piece. He's saying similar things to Paul Rowan about the fact that the schoolboy people now are going to vote against this the full report being implemented. So it remains to be seen where that goes.
And I think in any report there's going to be a lot of very good points. There's no doubts in that. But you know, if the report is going to be pushed in, to stop some of the bad stuff coming on the line, that's a real risk. That's a real risk for any organisation in that sense. My guidance would be, if I was involved, would be, let's get the bad stuff out. Like, we need to deal with this. If we want to really clean this up, like, we've got to take the bad stuff or whatever stuff is coming on the line, and make it happen quicker. Because, I thought for me, it was interesting that there was no questions allowed, for any of the employees or ex-employees or current employees, which I thought was interesting because that's where the public interest has stemmed from in this whole situation about this 100,000 loan and then other aspects of this chief executive's benefits or perceived benefits in that sense. So what they're trying to do is whitewash all that for the moment, bring this in. The problem bringing it in is that they don't have the schoolboys on board, and 36 votes is a lot of votes that they don't have in that sense. And then, hopefully at a point in time in the future, we'll say, well, now we've dealt with all the other stuff, and it's great, and but we've cleaned up the whole place, and you need to deal with the wounds first, and then deal with the wounds, and then from the wounds, lift up from the ashes. But right now, the FAI, has a long way to go, and. Garry mentions, some people like Brian Kerr and other people that, but there's a really an awful lot of very good people working in soccer. At all levels of administration.
And they're good people working within the FAI as well.
And the FAI, and I just think the sad thing is that they get all caught up in this, and they lose their motivation. If I was working, with a group about, setting a new vision, you have to get buy-in. You have to get buy-in for a vision. And right now, this new plan seems to have, other than political buy-in, which is expediency, so they can get back funding. Because I think Fergus O'Dowd made a point in Paul Round's, is that we'll bring the sport back into the right territory, transparent, accountable, and getting their funding back. It's more than about that. It's more just funding is important, but if this is really meant to be a let's fix it properly,
genuine way,
it needs to be more than that.
Gary, where do you want to go next? That's the FAI, so that's in a couple of the papers today. What else caught your eye?
I want it. Rory McIlroy.
Okay, who's talking about Rory?
Okay, so David Walsh is talking about Rory. It's
shows how famous he is that we don't have to give him a second name here.
There you go.
Only one Rory.
It's a really good line. It's a really good piece actually by David, and there's a good line at the end. He says, McIlroy has played great this year, just not in the majors. Pogba has played average this year, just not in the majors. You can argue whether this is because the American is mentally stronger or more because the superior all-round game holds up better in the heat of a major championship. Right, so this is my point, okay?
So just for people who haven't read it, because I know you're going to make your point first, to sum it up, he's basically looking at Koepka and saying...
Yeah, the piece is really about Koepka, but Rory gets reference in it towards the end. Now, essentially, this piece sort of sums up the last 5 years of McIlroy's career in that he is perceived to have been not succeeding. And so I did a little bit of nerdy research in this. Firstly, he's won 4 majors, McIlroy. Only 5 Europeans have ever won more, only one of whom is still alive, okay? Since he won his last major in 2014, okay, he has finished in the top 10 in 9 different majors, more than any other player in the world. So this is a player who, I'm not saying Walsh didn't use the word failing, but essentially it's that sort of theme that McIlroy is not delivering, okay? In addition to that, he's won 12 tournaments on the PGA and European tours. He has stayed in the world top 10. He has helped Europe to 2 Ryder Cup victories. He has had 9 top 5 finishes in majors in addition to his 4 victories, okay? Now, what are we comparing him to? Are we comparing him to Koepka? Are we comparing him to the player we thought he could become? My argument is we should actually also be comparing McIlroy to where he stands in the history of Irish golf and also the history of Irish sport. He was number 1 in the world for 95 weeks. Only 3 players have surpassed that total in the history of golf. Also, and this is where the nerdiness really came in, and this was hour after hour after hour, from 1964 to 97, there was only one Irishman, Christy O'Connor, in 85, who led a major at the end of a day's round. Okay? In the 1970s, only one Irishman finished in the top 10 in a major. McIlroy, he's won at 4 majors, that's the starting point. He's had 9 top 5 majors. He's delivering. He's just not delivering the titles, but there's way more depth now than there were in the 1970s.
That's true, yeah.
When Nicholas was winning as often as he did. So I actually think he gets a bit of a raw deal. I think I'm in a minority of one. Sorry, in this island I'm in a minority of 2, myself and McIlroy. But I think he's achieving, like, you know, and okay, he's not winning, but I mean, the guys that are beating him are good players.
Did you read the piece to me?
I did. I don't think he said that. I don't think he actually. I have a different view than Garry on it. I think the McIlroy story is a fascinating story. I mean, he's an exceptional golfer. I think, you know, sometimes we take for granted, you know, when you take Gary's narrative stats, what he has achieved, you know, which has been incredible. I think for most of us, the disappointment with McIlroy is that we expect him to be the successor to Tiger Woods. So you have 2 players in the history of golf, Nicklaus and Woods, who were exceptions to any situation, okay? And whether somebody like me thinks Woods was the greatest of all time or somebody else will think Nicklaus was, they're just opinions, but they separated themselves from everybody else. And we had a chance, we believe, with an Irish guy to be the third of that triumphant group in that sense. He then won 4 titles of majors before the age of 25, and we thought this world was going to be a phenomenal world. But there was always a challenge for McIlroy, and his putting was never the best. The one in McIlroy, even right through his amateur career, he was never the best putter. He was a streaky putter. He's probably the best driver, you know, in the game, has been probably ever, and people envy his driving in that sense. And over time, his iron and wedge play has become good and bad, but his putting is consistently. I heard a stat many years ago from a professional. At the time, Jason Day, Spieth, and Justin Thomas and McIlroy were sort of in that quartet. That when McIlroy stood on the tee box from tee to green, he was 6 shots ahead of them in every tournament, and they were 10 shots ahead of him on the green. And so on the days he putted well, he was always going to be, you know, the winner in that sense. And I think what David Walsh, you know, my take on it is that, you know, we've come to love McIlroy a bit more. I think he's announced and play for Ireland the next Olympics. So there's more of a love for McIlroy, I think, you know. He hasn't gone to the Hinch, which I think is a good decision for him, and we can talk about that later on. But Koepka is now the real deal as regards majors. And that's really where he focused on in that sense. And I just think the sad thing for Rory is that, you know, he can win more majors, there's no doubt. You know, how many more he win, time will tell. But the sad thing is that he's no longer the fairy tale we expected. You know, he now is just an exceptionally talented golfer who has 4 majors and may win more, but other guys are catching up. And, you know, when you look at a guy like Woods, who won his 15th against all the odds in Augusta, it's hard at this juncture to see McIlroy have that longevity. Because,
you know, it's hard to see him have those numbers. Like, it's hard to see him jump from 4.
Well, I don't ever see that would happen.
You just can't see that.
I mean, whether he'll win 1 more or 2 more, time will tell in that sense. But I think what David Walsh is saying, that, you know, Koepka is the real deal now in majors, and that where McIlroy succeeds in non-majors, Koepka doesn't succeed in non-majors and succeeds in majors. I don't think both of those are actually fully accurate in the sense that, you know, Koepka didn't win either last week, so, you know, both of them ended up, whether you're 2nd or 7th or 10th. Once you don't win it, you're an also ran in reality in that sense, from my point of view, in the majors. But I think the thing is that David Walsh was saying, you know, McIlroy will win the popularity stakes in the Open, but Koepka has got what it takes to outscore him where it matters in the majors. I actually hope David Walsh is wrong. I'd like to see McIlroy win more majors in that sense. And, you know, but even if he stopped today, you know, he's had a phenomenal career. And I just think that we're very hard on our sports people in this country, because we only want winners, you know, and we only want people to win, and we all love them when they win. And then
we only want winners. How many winners have we ever had, though, in any sport?
Well, at the highest,
we've in terms of world number ones, Sean Kelly was world number 1. Okay? Beyond that, in boxing, Katie Taylor is world number 1 now. It's a very short list. This guy was number 1 for 95 weeks. Yeah, it's a phenomenal achievement. What are we judging him on? Are we judging McIlroy on the McIlroy we wanted him to be, or are we judging him against a century of sport? Remember the hype that was generated by the Irish rugby team going to number 2 in the world? This guy was number 1 for 95 weeks. Rugby team didn't even make it to number 1. Only 8 teams play the sport well.
We not judge him off the standards he set, the ability that we know he has,
I think that's what,
versus what he's producing now.
Yeah.
We're not judging him off what me and you can do. We're not judging him off Irish golf over the last 100 years. We're not judging him off Irish sport over the last 100 years.
But shouldn't
we're
we
judging
be,
him
though?
off his own talent. I think you can only judge people off their own abilities.
I think you can only judge McIlroy on how he executes in the current world. I think that, we've given you've given the stats, Gary.
Like some of those stats, his top 10s in majors, if we're going by the McIlroy standard that he has set, I would like to know what percentage of those top 10 majors were reversed into. And by that I mean blows himself out of the tournament on Thursday or Friday, no pressure on him on Sunday, and so often in that scenario when he's tied for 35th, he goes out and shoots a 62 and finishes 8th. That has been a feature of his game far too often. It was a real blessing, actually. It was a real rarity on Sunday last week when he was in the second final pairing and actually started a Sunday in the tournament. Because I guarantee you, so many of those top 10s, which are impressive, of course they are, but by the standards that McIlroy has set, a lot of those top 10s by his standards are just reverse in under no pressure, finish tied for 8. They're what I call Matt Kuchar top 10s, as opposed to Brooks Koepka finishing
But you've 9
second,
top 5s as well as the top 10s.
He'd have reversed into a few of them, genuinely.
Yeah,
I'd like to know how far he was off the leader at the start of that day.
Okay, I'll put a question to you, right? If Shane Lowry gets in the top 5 in Port Rouge, what do you think that'll make headlines?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're judging Shane Lowry off Shane Lowry's abilities.
Right.
If Shane Lowry had won 4 majors in that space of time and produced that level of golf, then a 5th for Shane Lowry wouldn't cause any ripples. McIlroy finishes 5th. It'll be okay. It'll be good. By the standards he set, I think he's a victim of his own standards.
Yeah.
That's his problem.
Yeah.
Maybe the toughest thing you could say is, what a pity McIlroy didn't win 1 major every 4 years across his career. Then suddenly 4 majors.
But he was
Unbelievable.
he was better than that.
He was better than that.
See, Gary, I would, develop Joe's point. He was better than that. I mean, McIlroy was a superstar, and like they talk about it even in some of the pieces.
But he's not dead yet. Like, I mean, he hasn't retired yet. Like, he's got 4.
No, but
there was a gap. There was a huge gap. Was it 79 to 86 between Nicklaus's 17th and 18th? The gap between Woods' 14th and 15th.
Circumstances are different, though.
This guy could end up with 8 or 9 in an era when there's more depth than there ever was.
Okay, but first of all, the circumstances are different now in that. So Woods' gap of 11 years, there was a huge amount of injuries in that period from that point of view, and there were some other off the courses. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that, and we talked off camera and earlier on about, Nicklaus, played in an era where the majors were dominated by all American players. There was very few overseas international players. Gary Player obviously was the exception. So he won an awful lot of majors against American players. He was beating every week in that sense from that point of view. My frustration for McIlroy is that he has done an incredible thing in winning 4 majors by the time he did. Yeah. I think if he was sitting down today, and inside himself, not talking to guys like us, he would say he should have won more up to now. That's the thing about it. And right now, when you see for me, when I watch golf, I'm a big fan of golf. I never believe right now McIlroy is going to win a major. Last week I watched Pebble Beach, and on the first tee box, I just never believed he was going to win the major.
That's Walsh's almost core point, that Koepka has this iron will about him, and McIlroy has a sort of fragility in the pressure moments.
But the days McIlroy will putt well, Joe, he will win the major. And I just think that we're judging McIlroy against his own ability. He's not Shane Lowry, he's not Padraig Harrington, he's not Graham McDowell or Paul McGinley. He is this exceptional talent. And as I said, his driving is the envy of practically every pro. He drives the ball straighter and longer than practically everybody. The pity for him is that there's a lot more people now coming in, and this guy Koepka has come under the radar. If you think if he travelled the world, all the minor tours.
He's equalled McIlroy's career in major terms in 2 years. Like, there is an argument that Harrington's 3 majors is a greater achievement than McIlroy's 4 because of their individual
talents. He's maximised his talent.
Where I do definitely agree with you, Gary, is that when you step back from it all, when McIlroy retires, when he's a 60-year-old, 70-year-old walking around, if he still only has 4 majors, people won't be saying he should have won a lot more. They will say, what a great career. It's a Hall of Fame career.
They might say both.
Might say both. They probably will say both.
But
that'd
also,
be accurate. He could easily get to, if he gets to 6, what is he? Then he's level with Faldo as the best European.
Behind us, Forden had 7, hadn't he?
Yeah, I think Palmer's 7. Like, look, if McIlroy wins the same number of majors as Arnold Bloody Palmer.
Well, look, he's one shy of Ballesteros total.
Yeah. No, it's true.
It's just remarkable.
It is, and yet it's you did it in this glut almost, and you thought. I think it's
and
because
it's not over yet. Like, you know, he's still
the one thing. The
still
thing,
has 15 years.
He does. No, he does. I think there's a great chance he'll win at least another. Well, let's put a number on it. What are we saying?
Another 4.
Yeah,
I think if he wins
2 or 3.
I think if he wins one more, he'll do well.
Okay, on that bombshell.
Well, he will do well if he wins one more, because I just remember this. The big thing for me, Joe, I remember watching the Open and watching the majors throughout the 1980s.
Yeah.
And there was never an Irishman, with the exception of Sandwich in 85, in the top 10.
Yeah.
Just didn't happen.
And
Sorry, it did happen on 2 or 3 other occasions in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we've just been spoiled.
I know.
Spoiled not just by McIlroy, but also by the run when Clark won and McDowell and Harrington had his 3.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I just think we've lost the sense of perspective that this is what happens on a regular basis. It doesn't. You know,
true.
I'm glad I didn't live. I lived through half the 1970s, but I'm glad I didn't watch year after year.
I'd love to see McIlroy win many more majors. I think that, you know, the competition has changed now in that sense. People can drive it as far as him. Yeah. So if you look at the technical aspects of the game, you know, his length has been negated by many in that sense.
That's the worry for him over the next 5 years, is the next generation of college kids.
Yeah.
They look at his driving and they say,
we can do that.
I can do that.
You know, Koepka now is out there as long as him in that sense, and the difference is, you know, Koepka's short game is consistently under pressure, standing up more in that sense. But I'd love to see McIlroy win more. I think if he gets one more, I'd be very happy for him.
Okay. Need to go to Aaron Kernan. Half-time, Aaron?
Yeah, half-time here in Clonus. Just looking at the great Down All-Ireland winning team in '94, being acknowledged, but I think they're still the main men on show here are the Donegal team. They're winning 13-5 at the moment, and hugely impressive. I have to say, they've 9 different scorers. The pace that they're breaking at from all over the field, the quality of Sean Patton's kickouts has been top drawer. And you know what? In fairness to Cavan, they're battling. They're doing absolutely everything that they can, but they're just fighting battles all over the field here. In fairness to Donegal, every individual battle has been won by them at this stage, and really it's not a matter if they're going to score a goal, it's probably just a matter of when. You know, such as the dominance that they have all over the field, and the amount of options that they have, particularly Sean Patton's kickouts are going very long, very direct. They're winning a lot of first-time ball, and the runners, Owen McHugh and Owen Bond Gallagher, are coming off the shoulder at pace, and definitely very, very impressive, and look well on the way to head into the Super 8s as comfortable Ulster champions.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. Thanks for the time being, Aaron Kernan there. Donegal half-time, 13-5 against Cavan. Short break, we're back with more in the papers.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball. Challenge Henry.
Here we go. You've been sending me your suggestions, and so far, and I stalled it. I failed every single challenge. Oh, here we go.
I'm about to do it now. I'm about to be introduced to this phenomenon that is river dance.
And we're just going to do a forward jump like how we did it before. We're going 3. Ready? And 1, 2, 3.
Do you think you have the ultimate challenge for me? Then email me, challengehenry@newstalk.com.
That looks a little sore.
Challenge Henry, only on Newstalk.
I think I succeeded in the... No, I failed. No, I failed in all of them.
Satisfying afternoons with Harvey Norman. First-time buyer? Wondering how to get everything done? Don't. Just sit back and watch your house become a home with Harvey Norman's delivery and install.
Go, Harvey, go! At Energia, we power thousands of Irish homes, which means we're the power behind thousands of Hoovers and the power behind your rescue.
Almost. I gotcha. Look, Adam, I found your toy soldier under the sofa.
Switch to Energia and Ireland's cheapest dual fuel bundle and save up to €647. Energia, the power behind your power. EAB €1,470 based on average annual usage. 12-month contract, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax, T's and C's and early termination fee apply. Valid from May 2019 and subject to change. Verification and T's and C's at energia.ie/EAB.
What to eat, who to love, where to go. We get so many answers online. But the answers to some questions can only be found on the open road. For instance, just how good is it to drive an award-winning SUV like the Peugeot 2008, 3008 or 5008? Find out during the Peugeot Drive Time event now on at your nearest Peugeot dealer. Ask about flexible payment options and our 5-year warranty. Never have SUVs gone so far. See Peugeot.ie for terms and conditions.
Bruce Betting, one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. With best odds guaranteed on UK and Irish horse racing, Bruce Betting has you covered. And with the Bruce Betting app, we're always giving you more. T's and C's apply. Bruce Betting, in-store, online and now on your phone. Over 18s, please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Liam Gallagher, live in concert, with very special guest, Jerry Cinnamon, at Irish Independent Park this Sunday. Tickets from $49.90 on sale now. Additional charges may apply, subject to license. Don't miss Liam Gallagher, live with special guest, Jerry Cinnamon, at Irish Independent Park this Sunday.
When you're buying groceries, you think about the number of calories, you think about the ingredients, you think about the best before date. But do you ever think about where it was grown? Who picked it? Who packed it? Does your money go into the pockets of local people? It's not always possible, but whenever you can, buy local and support our proud Irish farmers, growers and producers who really do create wonderful products right here. Our local businesses, suppliers and workers are the backbone of Ireland's economy, and they're here for you. Your money goes further when you buy local. Visit buylocalnow.ie to find out more.
Introducing Go Loud, the new app that brings together your favourite radio stations, podcasts and music. Browse the best podcasts from comedy to crime and films to food. Enjoy hours of music to suit every mood. The home of great radio, entertainment, sport and news. It's easy to download, it's free to use. One app, all your sounds, Go Loud right now. Download the Go Loud app or listen online at goloudnow.com. Go Loud, podcasts, radio and music to your ears.
Rule back to school at Eason with 10% off Ireland's biggest range of school books. We'll help you save with our early bird offer in-store and online. And we'll even assemble the list for you, so you can show that book list who's boss. But hurry, offer ends July 7th. Terms and conditions apply. Eason, be inspired.
At Carphone Warehouse, make real savings with exclusive deals you won't find anywhere else. Get the new sleek Samsung Galaxy A50 for free with Samsung Cashback. Or get the seriously innovative iPhone 7 for only €99, both on a €30 a month plan with 3. The only network with all-you-can-eat data, but only when you switch at Carphone Warehouse, the home of the networks. Any network, any phone, any plan. Only Carphone Warehouse. T's and C's apply. Offer subject to 24-month contract.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Now then, welcome back. Half-time in the Ulster football final. Donegal leading comfortably against Cavan. We have Aaron Kernan up there. The very latest I have for you. Donegal 13 points, Cavan 5 points. We'll have Anthony Moyles at the Leinster football final. Dublin Meath, which throws in at 4 o'clock. We're reviewing the Sunday Papers. We have Garry Doyle here in studio and Timmy McCarthy as well. We've talked the future of the industry. We've talked FAI across various papers. And Rory McIlroy, David Walsh writing about him versus Koepka on the back page of the Sunday Times. Paul Pogba's turned up in quite a few places, and there are some good pieces about Pogba, who I always think is in some ways a tricky subject to write about, because he is just such a global superstar and it's hard to get close to him and the reality of the situation.
Hard to get close to anybody.
Well, it sure is, especially someone at this level. Northcroft certainly caught my eye, Jonathan Northcroft, on page 7 of the Sunday Times, where effectively he's making the argument. He's talking about Pogba on the pitch, because so much of Pogba is off the pitch. Midfielder is good but not great, is the argument Northcroft makes. And I think he's done a lot of work in this piece and looked through the various stats on this.
There are two pieces that stand out on Pogba. One is Ollie Holt's in the Mail on Sunday, and one is Northcroft's. There's different styles in terms of how they report it. Northcroft doesn't just provide an argument. He's not just relying.
It's not just an opinion.
Yeah, and he's not relying on style. He's providing substance to go with it. Like the one stat, and the stat is hidden deep in the piece, and you don't even know it off the top of your head. Like, you know, he goes that The starting point has to be his 16 strikes and 11 assists in 2018-19, a season in which almost 1/3 of all the goals United scored featured the Frenchman's involvement. When I read that at that point of the piece, Joe, I was thinking, oh my God, I've got my opinion of this guy wrong, that he's much more influential than I was giving him credit for.
Yeah.
The piece goes on, he makes gives a very balanced, it's very hard to give an opinion piece that's balanced for that piece to stay in your mind and to end up giving credit for it.
Yeah.
You either vote for one side or the other normally when you write an opinion piece. But he's effective. Northcroft is prepared to be balanced and still be effective. So he's doing really well. We'll come later to the piece, and he goes, half of those goals were penalties. Only one was against the top 6 side, and only 2 of the assists were also against the top 6 side. He was joint 8th with Jamie Vardy and below Callum Wilson for total goal involvements. The bulk of his goals were assists, also arrived in United's flat track run just after Solskjaer arrived against the makeweights in the Premier League. In other words, this guy has done a serious amount of research into making the point he's made, and it's made a really effective piece. Now, different style. You go to Ollie Holt. This piece, it's funny, it's sharp. He has also worked incredibly hard in this piece, Joe, but his work rate has concentrated on finding the right words to make his point, and he does so really successfully. So it's what you want on a Sunday is something that you don't know. Northcroft provides that with the evidence. Holt, what also you want on a Sunday is to enjoy yourself, to have a piece. Like we're talking off air about a very serious piece written by Rob Draper about Platini. And to be honest, it bored the life out of me. It was very worthy, but very dull. Whereas here, this is an entertainment industry. We want to be entertained. Holt entertains us. Where he says, the club have become, this is Manchester United, have become the Premier League equivalent of a giant wood chipper, chewing up the reputations of players and managers, devouring mountains of banknotes and leaving a few piles of sawdust for us to show for it. It's a good turn of phrase, and it perfectly sums up United post-Ferguson. All fur coat, no knickers.
Well, the jumping off point for the Holt piece is about Lingard as well, where he did that video tour of the apartment. If you haven't seen this, if you're not a social media person, Jesse Lingard was on holidays with Marcus Rashford, and as they were leaving the hotel, they did a little tour of the various rooms. And as Holt says, he wandered into one of the rooms and captured his friend Jamal Branker face down and gyrating with a pillow. And he uses that analogy, and he says that Manchester United now, it's like the perfect analogy for a club wallowing in its impotence while the conquests are being made elsewhere. So he's saying when he saw in the room, mate gyrating against a pillow, and said, that guy is kind of Manchester United now, he's humping a pillow. That is who they've become, which is pretty good in fairness.
Well, I actually saw a different style actually in Holt's. I think Holt's writing about Manchester United. I don't think he's just using Pogba as an example of his story. He's actually saying United are finished, and are going to be finished for a long time, which is an interesting piece when I read his piece, because on the Northcroft piece, as Garry said, it's an opinion piece, and he's backing up his opinion, basically that they should sell Pogba with facts.
That's the headline, sell now, spend wisely.
Yeah, so that's what he's saying on the Northcroft piece. But I think Holt is talking about something much more fundamental, which is the club, and the example you talked about there. There's a funny line, he says, at United the good times have gone away. All that's left now are some crumpled sheets and an urgent need to get the cleaners in, okay? Just to follow on your point about the gyrating. So he's making it clear that, and he references Gary Neville later on, saying it'll be 2 years before they win the championship.
Which is optimistic.
Which is, very optimistic in that instance. Obviously, I meant the Premiership championship, not just the championship, because some Man United fans will be tweeting that they're still in the Premiership, and I do understand that. But I think his piece is saying United are in real trouble. I thought was the fascinating piece for me was the second last paragraph on the piece. The inventory is daunting. Owners who appear to be asset stripping the club, an executive vice chairman who's out of his depth, a philosophy that prioritises making money over glory, a stadium that looks moribund and weary compared to new developments of sport in Anfield, a squad stocked with deadwood and ordinariness, players who don't want to be there, players who are awfully pleased with themselves, for men who have never won anything. Man United, the club pretending to have sex in an empty bed, have a long way to travel before the good times and back. And that's very sad for a club of that stature.
Are you a Man United fan?
I'm a Chelsea fan, so but I get no pleasure out of seeing a club who are so successful like this now look to be in a journey that is going to be a long way to recover any of the greatness.
By the way, the hook for Northcroft's piece as well is that today marks the start of Pogba's final year, or penultimate year of his contract. United do a 12-month extension, so they actually need to decide soon enough what they're going to do with him, because it becomes a bit tricky as you count down a contract. And Pogba's said in the last couple of days it might be good to find a new challenge somewhere else. So he's saying for Woodward and Solskjaer that brings the matter to a head, and he's definitely of the opinion they should sell him, because it seems if they want to keep him, they may have to give him the captaincy, they may have to give him $500,000 a week, he's saying. Plus, interestingly, because it ties in with one of the back pages, some assuaging of a dressing room where some have tired of his self-absorption. So maybe there is the beginnings of a recognition within the dressing room that he mightn't be good for the overall package.
Like a key aspect of a really good manager, Joe, is not just being able to identify talent, it's also knowing when to sell. And Wenger, during his good years at Arsenal, was superb at that. He sold Vieira at the right time. He got rid of
Overmars at a good time as well. And Anelka at a good time. Petit,
people forget that Petit wasn't the player when he left Arsenal for Barcelona that he was when they won the double in 97-98. So it's a really good skill to have. You have absolutely no doubt Ferguson would have got rid of Pogba.
And did once already when he was sticking his head up the parapet too much. He said, off you go.
I think what's interesting though, Joe, is that I spotted the piece on the Sunday Mirror.
Steve Bates you had,
and I think that, so the sponsors have now come into play in this story, and they have said,
Adidas
United,
we're talking about.
Adidas have said to United, you must keep Pogba. We've supported you, we've given you a contract for $750 million over 10 years, a mega deal in 2015. And part of the deal was to use United's biggest stars to front up their advertising campaigns in Asia, Europe and USA. And they're now worried that this World Cup winning star Pogba, if he goes, it damages their brand. So it's interesting to see, you have the whole piece about United as a club, you have the Northcroft piece about Pogba and his inadequacies for somebody of his talent. And now you have a sponsor coming into sport again. And, we've had examples of that obviously in this country in the past 12 to 18 months, particularly in the rugby front, where sponsors have come in and, given a position on their involvement with the club. And Adidas have now made it clear to United, if you take Steve Bates' piece, as page 55 on the Mirror saying, you got to keep him. So, maybe Fergie would have got rid of him, maybe Wenger would have got rid of him, but, the sponsors didn't have as much influence as they appear to have now.
This is going to become the burning issue in sport in the next 5 years, because sponsors they've raised their voice, they've made their opinion, and they're going to continue to do so. And it's going to be soon. There's going to be a major backlash against their influence on decisions that are being made on the pitch. They've no business going there. They're not experts on it. They have to stay well away, but they aren't going to. And it's going to become, you're going to be talking about this a lot, Joe.
Yeah, I would have thought so. In GAA terms, there are a few different bits and pieces. Dennis Walsh is looking at the fact that the GAA are participating in Dublin Pride for the very first time. I'm sure people are aware of that. He says the Pride Parade in Dublin has been in existence since the early 1980s, growing in that time from fewer than 1,000 participants to more than 60,000 last year. In tone, it has changed from one of protest to one of exuberant celebration. Why has it taken so long, he wonders, for the GAA to be involved? He said the GAA had never been asked before, and maybe the GAA didn't look like an organisation that was waiting to be asked. For generations, it projected a conservative image bound up with the values of old Ireland, and to a degree, the Catholic Church. Wouldn't even say to a degree, bishops thrown in the ball. That has changed incrementally at first, and then, says Dennis, at a rattling pace. Talks to different people here, quotes different people, Donald Cusack, and Valerie Mulcahy as well here, who says of the importance of this happening. Unless you're in the LGBTQ community, you might not understand the significance of this, GAA getting involved in Pride. She says it's a wonderful message, just the whole idea of showing more inclusivity. Years ago, it wasn't really spoken about. It was never spoken about. In itself, that makes it seem like there's something wrong. So if anyone's saying, well, why did the GAA need to get involved in this? It's there's no need. Her point is the fact that it was never spoken about in itself, that makes it seem like there's something wrong. That's the importance for her. It's a good piece, I think.
It's a brilliant piece, Joe. And do you know one thing that struck me about when I was reading this piece? I could have read another 700, 800 words on it. But one of the things about the Sunday Times is these guys are constrained to, I think it's a maximum of 1,100 per piece. So for somebody like Dennis, who's a world-class talent and is so consistent, he needs more space than what he's being given here. We had more space in the Little Brothers paper in the Times Ireland. We could go up to 2,500 if we wanted to, if we needed to. And like Tommy Conlon's piece on Leitrim last week, 5,000 words. It was exceptional. The piece during the week on that sad trial, that tragic trial. Sorry,
Conor Gallagher, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was it 16,000 words?
Yeah.
And I didn't stop reading it.
No,
if something is well written, and if the subject is of interest, you will keep reading, particularly in a Sunday paper. And I think these guys deserve more space because they're really talented. The four Irish writers on the Sunday Times, Dennis, Mick, Paul Rowan and Peter O'Reilly, are top class operators. And to hold them back, it's a bit like that line Mick O'Dwyer said about Paddy O'Shea, whereby you're putting when he moved him from half back to cornerback, and said, just you're stopping him, you're putting a chain on him, like you can't do that in the cold, These guys are being constrained. This piece is brilliant. I could have read it for another 900 words.
I really enjoyed the piece. The fact that two of my fellow Corkonians, were strong in the piece, Donal Cusack and Valerie Mulcahy, and they've been very strong, in fairness, in bringing this, to the fore. I love this little paragraph in third column from the left, and Donal Cusack was walking around Cork City on the day of the referendum when he got a congratulatory text from Gerry Adams, the former president of Sinn Féin. And he said, Jesus, Gerry, this feels like a revolution. And then said, this is the closest we'll get to a revolution in our lifetime. I gave him an X at the end of it, a kiss sign. And I just think this was the mind frame that day. It was a liberating day and a liberating feeling. And then Valerie Mulcahy made a point saying, it's a wonderful message, just a whole idea of showing more inclusivity. I think it's critical for our country, that the GAA stands up in this field, because I think that, we've moved so far on as a country in inclusivity, and I just think that this is a really great development. It's a smashing written piece, and I just think that there are some snippets in it that really bring it to life. And I just thought, imagine Donal Cusack and Gerry Adams, talking about a liberation and a revolution. I just thought to myself, it was cool in that sense.
What I liked as well is it's not just everything is great kind of an attitude. There were two things which really jumped out at me as very significant. So Dennis has talked here to Garoj O'Wellvickle. Excuse me, Garoj, if I've mispronounced your surname. Garoj is chair of the GAA's Gender Diversity Work Group. I must confess, I didn't know the GAA had a Gender Diversity Work Group. And he's talking about almost the next frontier for inclusivity in the organisation. And he said, well, of children who are gay, he said, we're getting calls from parents saying, my child is gay, he doesn't feel part of it. And we're trying to intervene at the moment on a one-to-one basis in those cases. And then just to make the world a whole lot more complicated, and it's happening now, it's not really in the future. He said, the GAA at the moment are helping 5 children who are in the process of transgendering, one as young as 5 years old. He said, their parents have come to us, and in all 5 cases we have tried, so far successfully, to integrate those children into our association. The first 2 were in Dublin. The parents had already done work with the schools, and they wanted us to do work with the GAA. The 5-year-old was born a girl, and her parents wished that we categorise her as a boy in the association. They've met psychological services, and time will tell for that family. In the meantime, we facilitated what they wanted. That is just a snapshot of just how complicated life is going to get for associations like the GAA. It's fantastic they're trying to get ahead of it. He's saying they're working on a policy document at the moment, which I look forward to reading, because that's not easy territory.
No, but fair play to them for... The funny thing is, the GAA, still has a reputation for being incredibly conservative as an organisation.
Yeah.
The last 20 years, they've been so radical in comparison to how they were up until then.
True, because they are moving slowly,
forward.
but so much has
They
changed.
are moving slowly, but at least they're moving, like, you know.
The other thing, and this is...
Sorry, the other thing I'd really want, for Mulcahy and Cusack to come out and speak as publicly as they have, it's just so brave, and they just have to be admired for doing this. And they're helping so many people.
Mulcahy makes the point actually on that, where she says, so Dennis writes, over the last couple of years, a host of high-profile ladies football and camogie players have spoken about their sexuality, and they do so, I think, in a way which is, you know, as Dennis says, they just weave a reference to a girlfriend. It's not like an announcement. It's just me and my girlfriend were away, and now we're, you know, we're back and I'm playing a match at the weekend. Mulcahy, I don't know how that would be perceived in a male changing room, but certainly for women, it's become just be who you are. There doesn't seem to be the same judgment, which is great. People live their lives, love who they love, they get on with their sport. More people speak, the less stigma. So certainly there's less of a...
That's a great line. The more people speak, the less stigma.
But there's less references to my boyfriend in male GA.
But I think that's just part of the journey. I think that's just part of the journey. I think that, you know, as somebody who obviously has been in dressing rooms in many situations as a player, obviously, and as a coach, there's an uncomfortableness at times about sexual things in male dressing rooms, even though you think that there's actually more comfortableness about it.
It's almost an immaturity.
There's an immaturity which covers up the uncomfortableness in that. So I think that, you know, the fact that, you know, Valerie talks about that in the female dressing rooms, it's become more natural. I think it's only a matter of time, and thankfully so, it will become natural in the male dressing room.
I think it'll be a tough journey, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I just think...
I would have thought there'll be almost universal support, and I
hope there is.
Second or third person, it practically won't be a story.
I hope it. Well, I certainly hope that. I hope it becomes. I hope it's an easy journey, but I don't think it will be.
We'll see the GAA marching in Pride this Saturday. Then, just one. This was just like the quintessential piece. I saw the headline and I kind of thought, oh, it's interesting. And I started reading it and I read to the very end because it was beneath the Pride piece and it had like lots of gems in it I hadn't fully realised. It's really good. Like, we're all aware now, dummy teams are basically just the norm in every respect in GAA. So Dennis Walsh, again, having a good day on page 5 of the Sunday Times, Dennis.
Joe, that's the thing. Dennis Walsh has a good day every time he writes.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That's what I mean. He's world class. And he's consistently good.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to produce. It's not easy. Some people produce a good piece once a year. This guy does it week after week after week. And he's not alone in that respect. In this country, we have got some top-class sports writers. And we're not talking about 1 or 2. We're talking about 10 or 20. And I'm aware that there are news sections to newspapers as well. I've just never really got around to reading them too often because the sports sections are just way better.
I think it's a great piece because I think he shows the stupidity of it at times. I think I think the one about Gerald Loughnane and the Galway team, that as the team were on the parade, the players didn't even know who the team was.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. And I have to say, as somebody who's been involved in sport, I think that's criminal. I think that, you know, I've coached players in different codes, and you need the players to understand what you expect of them well in advance of, you know, the parade in that sense. But I thought the last line was brilliant for me. The last. He tells about, you know, the fact that Brian Cody in the last couple of paragraphs has now even become part of this dummy team process.
He says he was the one manager down the years who never got into that.
He was
nonsense.
the exception, and you know, but last weekend, and you know, he now apparently has got into the last Saturday night. But he says, don't matter. Somebody this summer will have the boldness to name a team and stand over it. You just won't believe it, and that's the sad thing, you know, because if you look at. You know, if you look at the Premiership, you know, they name their team and it's the team. There's no, you know, they can have different.
They only name it an hour before kickoff.
But they name it, you know, in that sense. From that point,
I think there's a lot to be said for going that way. Actually, now I know programs you like having teams in the programs, but it's just not working.
Yeah.
Whereas at least for radio and TV and journalists at the ground, if the team was named an hour beforehand, well then actually on the TV coverage you could say, right, let's actually talk about the team now.
Yeah.
Fair enough, you might be able to talk about it on the Friday evening on a radio show or in a paper, but at least you'd know on the hour before, and everybody in the stadium could then go, geez, what do you think?
But the rugby teams, guys, the rugby teams name it 2 days before it.
I can't get my head around the stupidity of that. Why would they give the opposition team that advantage? And why,
2 days before, you mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's stupid. stupid. It's archaic.
Well,
as it is.
The rule is from 2015. Dennis
you need
writes,
26.
9 a.m. on Thursdays, 2 hours before the print deadline for match programmes. So that's the logic. And once those 26 players have been registered, no other player can be parachuted into the squad. Counties who don't comply face fines up to £1,000, although, as Dennis says, nobody so far has received a ban for the fine. Is it that we have a certain... There's a certain tradition of the match programme having the team. That's what it seems to be tied up in.
Yeah, it is.
But now I think it's damaging to match programmes now because everyone's like, what's the point in buying the match programme?
Yeah, I think you could be dead right as well.
You know?
Yeah, I think...
serious. Like, these guys, okay, it's not their livelihood. Well, they might get a few expenses. But it is too serious. Like, if you take a team, that team means the world to you, right?
Yeah.
And if you're in charge of a team, you cannot be giving away your state secrets 3 days beforehand. I think it's absolutely crazy that this practice still goes on.
But as Timmy says, rugby do it.
Stupidly. I'm not saying they're right. Just because they do it doesn't mean they're not thick.
If both teams do it,
then both teams do.
Then it's a fair amount of stupidity on both sides.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't think it's stupidity. Can I just say, I don't think it's stupidity.
All right.
Oh, no, I don't think it's stupidity to name it. First of all, I think what is stupid is that a traditional programme is determining
the deadline.
So that's stupid. So we should move on from that in that sense. And whether it is the day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, or no before the game, we should name the teams.
Yeah.
But I've always believed, when you're involved in sport, you're scouting the opposition. And it doesn't really matter who they bring on, because you've scouted all of these players. I can remember, at the national level, we would play against teams. We would know every single one of their players. We'd have videoed them, we'd have scouted them, we'd know their strengths, their weaknesses, and we would try and, deal with it at best. And in basketball, like, people can come on and off. So the starting five becomes irrelevant because you can bring a player on immediately afterwards. So I don't think there's any stupidity in rugby naming their team 2 days before it, because I think from the players' point of view, and there's a nice thing to understand that they can talk about the things that they can help each other with in that sense. But I think there should be a consistency. I do believe what's stupid right now is a programme is determining the announcement of the team.
Yeah.
So I don't care when they announce the team, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, or 1 hour. Once both teams have to announce it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, guys, like when you think of all the dummy teams down all the years, how many of them have worked in reality?
Oh, look, the fact that Brian Cody didn't in his palm says everything. I can't believe the Loughnane one that he only told them after the parade. That is just a gem in that piece. Yeah. There's a certain Irishness to it, though, isn't there? That, like, the team is announced, everybody knows it's not the team, it's in the programme, everyone knows it's not the team, and then you wait for it to actually happen. And we all sort of go along with this charade. We do this in so many aspects of Irish life. It's like the learner driver can't drive on their own, and yet for decades it was like, but obviously I will. I mean, obviously, no one's going to enforce this. I think it's been enforced now. Like, it's quite a lateral thing, but Can I ask just a very quick one? Last GA piece, I was just reading Shane McGrath, page 76, where he was like, and Timmy, you might weigh in on this, given you can remember the Kerry 5 in a row bid.
Yes.
So he's saying a legend has been forged before our eyes, but it feels as perfunctory as brushing teeth. 10 weeks from today, Dublin should win the All-Ireland Football Championship for the 5th consecutive time. But where is the sense of greatness gathering for one final push for glory? There is none. How does this 5 in a row compare with Kerry? I would think far more low-key and a sense of inevitability about this one. Oh, what was the feeling?
Oh, no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, absolutely, I wouldn't agree with that. I would think that the Kerry 5 in a row was a banker. I mean, there was no question.
Right. And were people having the same moans that we are now?
Oh, yeah, that this team, I mean, there was talks about, that you should split Kerry up, like, make it, like, they're too good. I mean, absolutely. I was a teenager or my young adult at the time. There was talks about, you should split Kerry up, they're too good, I mean, I'm from Cork, so we were getting hammered every year by them in most of the finals in that sense. And, and there was a guaranteed expectation they were going to win a 5 in a row. There was no questions under anybody's mind that this team were not going to beat Offaly in that sense. And if you look at it, at the clip of the game, right, they missed the penalty. I mean, Sheehy missed the penalty, which would have put them out of sight in the game, and they had enough chances. They just didn't, I think psychologically it reminds me of teams that, become afraid to lose. So Kerry were in control of the game, they were playing, they missed the penalty, and all of a sudden, a few minutes to go, they become afraid to lose and they start holding what we have. So they stop doing the things that got them there and they start coming back. And when they came back, eventually, obviously Derby got this infamous goal. So I don't think there's any difference in the expectations.
Really? Okay. I just feel there's a real sense of almost gloom about the whole thing, because whether Dublin do the 5 in a row or not, and they probably will, and that'll be great, even if they didn't, I think there's now an increasing sense, given demographics and how sports science has almost taken chance out of the equation, and video analysis has taken surprises out of the equation, that whether they do or don't this year, there is a fear that Dublin could win between 6 to 8 All-Irelands every decade.
I'm not so sure. They could. I know exactly where you're coming from in that, in terms of the population, but the history of sport is filled with great teams
emerging.
Disappearing.
Yeah, and that's why I'm giving 4 out of every decade to another team.
And 20 minutes ago, we were talking about Manchester United's decline, and how we're pretty much all in agreement that they're not going to be coming back anytime soon.
Right, I know, but I don't think anyone from Abu Dhabi is about to buy Donegal. I wonder, is it a good analogy, like when you can actually pump somewhere full of money and actually buy players in?
I think it is a good point.
Do you sense the kind of?
I do sense that people are fairly. Dublin fans are more than happy to see them continue to win. Yeah. Outside of the Dublin boundaries, people are a bit bored by the whole thing. Like, if you think back between '97 and 2004, you had 6 different counties winning the Leinster Championship, and Dublin only won one of those 7 Leinster Championships. So, whereas now, since then, actually, they've won all bar one. So there is that sense of inevitability that they're going to continually. The Leinster Championships become redundant in many respects, you know. And until last night, you'd have said the same about the Munster Championship in the last 5 years. There's only
Timmy, you're giving Rory McIlroy one more major. How many All-Irelands a decade are you giving Dublin?
Well, first of all, I think that Dublin have a lot of advantages in the sense of the size of the county is a big advantage.
That's only going one way.
And that's, but it's interesting because, I was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in '83. When Cork, Ty Murphy got a go in the last second of the game to deprive Kerry of 9 in a row in Munster, which again we looked at, but if you take that Kerry team, they came back the following year and won 3 more All-Irelands at a point. So I think that the Dublin bandwagon will roll on. I do believe, that I don't think people are bored. I think people are always bored from other counties when one county is dominating. So when Cork were dominating the hurling, we were never bored with it in Cork. Other people were bored. When Kilkenny were dominating the hurling, other people were bored with it, but Kilkenny people were bored. And I think the same in Dublin, your point, Guy. The Dublin people aren't bored with this. But I believe that, there won't be a decade go by where Dublin won't win at least 3 All-Irelands.
3, yeah.
Within the decade. I'm not saying they'll win in consecutive. And I think it's because of 3 factors. First of all, demographics. They just have a lot of people. I do think the Cox-Roscommon transfer will be very interesting to see, the Kerry guy who's gone to Roscommon.
Oh yeah, Cox, yeah.
I think it'll be a very interesting development because that could challenge Dublin at some point in the future. But I think Dublin will demographics. I think financially they're in the capital. There's more economics available to it in that sense. And I think that there's success breeds success, and there's more kids playing GA now. If you look at stories about the GA clubs have really blossomed. So I'd give them 3.
3 a decade. I just worry, if you take the analogy, we're about the size of a small state in America. It's entirely possible the biggest town in that state wins the state championship every year, or give or take, and you just don't want it to become that.
Well, I think that's increasingly becoming the case as well in a number of counties, whereby the biggest county champions tend to be the clubs from the biggest town. Portlaoise being the example that comes, St Lomans in Westmeath being another example.
So will it become a microcosm of that?
But then you still get the exception like Mullinaghta in Longford. Well, it could become, of course it could become. We don't know. We're trying to predict the future.
I'm not convinced, by the way, that Dublin's walk to the 5 in a row is as clear-cut as ever.
Yeah, I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced of that. I think Dublin are the best team in the country. I think they have the best panel in the country. But sport is funny. Sport is fickle.
And what happens in the future if Jim Gavin disappears and suddenly they get an idiot in as a manager?
Yeah, there's no doubt a great manager is essential. Yeah,
I think what's helping Dublin in their quest for 5 in a row is it's not knockout. So you can. I think that you got to give Kerry in that team in their run in there's 8 All-Irelands in 12 years because they won 8 in that 12-year period, 86 backwards. It was knockout, so there was no chance for errors. I think what helps Dublin's cause, the Super 8s, Dublin could lose a game. You look at hurling. You've Limerick and Cork, my own county, who have lost 2 games so far and could end up winning the All-Ireland, you know. So the rules have slightly changed, but I just think that, you know, I'd love to see Dublin win the 5 in a row if Cork aren't involved, because I think it's great to see history being achieved, and I think that, you know, that doesn't make them better than the Kerry team in the 70s. They were a phenomenal team in their era. It just means that in this era they're the best team. So I don't worry, Joe, about, you know, dominance. You know, Liverpool dominated, you know, soccer in the 70s and 80s, and, you know, and it's 30 odd years since then. You know, if you came out of Anfield in 1990, I think was it when they won their last title, and said you will never win a title for 30 years again, we'd have said, guys, that will never happen, you know, and they haven't won in 30 years. So I think that Dublin have a lot of aces, but they have a lot of talent at this point in time, who've all come together, and it'll be an interesting summer. But I don't believe that there's any difference in the quest that Kerry had and the same interest or lack of interest.
Okay. The clock has come right against us, so just to briefly mention some other pieces we had jotted down and hoped to get to. There's a good piece on page 8 of the Sunday Times, Italy move on from sexism row. It's just a great piece on how the Italians,
that's a
the
brilliant
World Cup
piece.
is on. Isn't it really good?
It's absolutely brilliant. And I'll tell you what's good. There's a number of things that is good about this piece. Firstly, it's really well written. It's short.
Sorry, actually, I'm told to go to Aaron Kernan and I'll be right back to you. Aaron, sorry, where are we?
Yeah, we're coming into the closing stages of the game. Pretty similar to the last time. Donegal have now extended the lead 120 to 113. Very open, a lot of scores, 2 goals, 33 points, but still Donegal are without doubt the masters in Ulster at the moment. Cavan, in fairness to them, battled really well, started the second half sort of slow and then really started to get the grips with it, come back to within 6 points, but that man Jamie Brennan just got a ball down along the stand side here, burned his man, possibly could have got a penalty. Referee let advantage go and then finished it to the net, and you have to say that was really curtains. But Cavan went back up the other end of the field, worked a good goal through Conor Madden, but just anytime Donegal need to win clean possession, anytime they need to get a simple score, they're able to do it at their ease, and they're back on the attack again here. Darrow Boyle soloing through 21 yards out, and just popping it off, just simple slick passes. A fisted point by Oisin Gallen, probably about the 4th or 5th time they've done that there in the second half. Whenever, if they really needed to, they could have worked a goal chance. But no, I have to say a very, very, very impressive Donegal today, heading into the Super 8s as back-to-back Ulster champions.
You're depth at full time. Thanks very much, Aaron Kernan, for the time being. Donegal about to see that one out against Cavan. Sorry, Gary, I interrupted you in full flow, so we thought this was a really good piece.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was really interesting. It was well written. You like to read pieces where you know more at the end than you did at the start.
Yeah.
And this is one of those pieces. The bit about how in the 1980s the Italian women's game was just so strong, so popular.
It was a big golden era for it.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
No.
You know?
I knew there's definitely, I was saying to you guys before we came in, there's definitely an Irish player who played over in the Ladies Serie A at the time, but massively popular at the time. Front page of the Gazzetta, all the coverage of it. Rebecca Myers is writing about it here. She has done last week about the Women's World Cup. The reason, by the way, is Italy play China on Tuesday. That's the hook.
Yeah, and also that then the sport went into decline when men got involved.
Yeah.
In terms of the administration of it and
neglected it effectively.
Yeah, made a mess of it.
Well, she starts off with a hell of a quote from Felice Bellioni.
It's shocking, yeah.
Head of Italy's Amateur Football Association. He denied saying this, but the minutes of the meeting caught it, and no offence intended to anyone, especially when we're talking about Pride weekend and the GIA getting involved. So this is why one of the reasons the women's game probably fell into disrepute in Italy. He said, that's enough at one stage. We cannot talk constantly about giving money to this bunch of lesbians, which is an indicator as to why the women's game struggled in Italy for a long time. And they stopped making World Cups for a while, but they're back now. That's the point to me.
Yeah, and I thought, I mean, it's an outrageous comment, and you know, it's very easy to deny it, but you know, it's in the minute. I thought it was again a really interesting piece. The fact that, you know, if you don't have people at the top, you know, with the real genuine interest of a sport, you can very easily lose control of the sport and its demise. To me, I thought there was one other angle I wanted to pick up, Joe, was Rosa Peralta talked, a former Italian player, about the media coverage and how big it was and that, and you know, and then she throws in a line about, you know, men going to watch the game for a laugh or because women were in shorts, etc. And then she says, there's no play acting in women's sport as in the men's game. The girls are more honest in the field. I'd be very careful in any sport to start, comparing one to the other, because if you want to compare everything, everything gets compared. So we should just enjoy the women's sport. And at this point in time, I've watched a lot of the World Cup, and there are times people go down very softly, So I don't think we can be pious about any sport in that sense. But I think that the sexism row that was evident in Italy was evident in many sports in our country and in other countries. And thankfully we're at the stage now where we're getting beyond that, but it's still part of a journey. But let's enjoy the sport for its own merits, and let's stop trying to have this male-female comparison, because there are differences. Okay, I mean, I heard on watching Ascot the other day, one of the analysts say, horse racing is the only sport where there's no discrimination between men and women, that there's no advantages, there are disadvantages. Okay. But let's just enjoy any sport. So if it's men's sport, if it's women's sports, let's just enjoy the talent we see with the skills that they have at that point in time for what it is. And stop this comparison with saying, she's not as fast as him, or he's not as dainty as her, or whatever we say in these things from that point of view. I think that I've really enjoyed the Women's World Cup. I think the skill has been phenomenal. I think there's been some exceptional players. I think the US look to be, like steamrolling their way forward. But there's a couple of surprises. I think, I think that it'll be interesting to see how Phil Neville gets on with his cohorts. That's today, I think, isn't it?
He's doing a good job,
So, but let's just enjoy the sport, and let's make sure sexism, anti-male or anti-female, has no place in sport.
30 seconds literally left. We're going to go over to Aaron Kernan and then to Anthony Moyles. There was a line from Tommy Conlon you wanted to mention?
Yeah, it's about Maradona, and I just think it's a brilliant line. It talks about Maradona. When you're on the pitch, life goes away. And that summed up his life, really, that when he was playing, it was all about playing. Everything else, obviously, was a mess. Can I just quickly say, though, a major congratulations to James Sugrue. He's a Corkman, by the way, just to clarify that, on a phenomenal achievement in Portmarnock.
I've just been told he's on the show at 5 o'clock.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. And just say, well, give him my congratulations. I thought his performance was exceptional. We talked about McIlroy and some of the other greats in Irish golf. He joins 8 Irish men who've won the amateur, and he's the second Corkman after the famous Jimmy Broome. So it's an amazing achievement. 288 entrants, 90 quid entry fee, and now you play Augusta.
Dermot Gilleese had that today.
You play Augusta, you go to the US Winged Foot, and you go to Portrush.
Oh, I'll be offering him the service of my caddy.
Yeah, it is.
5 o'clock if he needs any help.
And I'm also able to drive the car. Joe, I'll be the chauffeur. Gary, what will you do?
Zero interest.
Gents, thanks very much. Garry Doyle, thanks a million for coming in. Tim McCarthy, pleasure to have you back again. We'll take a short break, and then Ulster football final full time with Aaron Kernan, and Anthony Moyles is standing by in Croke Park to give Meath men hope ahead of throwing at 4.
Off the ball on News Talk. Join that conversation on Facebook and Twitter.
Summer. Moon. Indigo. Aria. Prosper. Unity. Unity. Unity.
I'm here.
Right. Seatbelts, everyone.
Yeah.